It's the Cannon Sports Podcast. On today's episode, we're joined by prep sports reporter and editor for the LA Daily News, Tarek Fattal. Welcoming everybody to the Cannon Sports Podcast from inside the studio here at Cannon Sports Media. I'm Phil George, and on today's show, we have Sportswriter from the LA Daily News, Tarek Fattal. Tarek, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. I love that you guys are right here in the San Fernando Valley. That made my drive over here very easy.
And we're happy to have you. This is going to be a little bit of a different show today. Normally we sit down with a coach and take a really in-depth look at their program specifically. Now at the dawn of a new high school football season, we're going to take a zoomed out overview of the landscape as a whole. Happy to have Tarek here to do that with us. Before we get started, everybody, please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends. Let's go ahead and get into the show and start off. Tarek, why don't you introduce yourself, give everybody a background of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. I've been at the Daily News for 7 years, going into year 8. Majority high school sports coverage, but the last 3 years also cover the UCLA men's basketball team, which has been pretty fun because they made some NCAA runs. So that's been quite an experience for me covering them. But yeah, just really found a passion for high school sports and telling young people's stories and seeing them persevere through injury, or some of them transfer to bigger programs and do well, or some of them stick it out and like the olden days, so to speak, and earn a starting spot and thrive. So that to me has always been really fun. I enjoy being around young people. I enjoy competition. I was a college athlete myself. So for me, this is really fun and I really enjoy it.
Where did you play?
Oh, I played junior college basketball at Moore Park College and then finished at Springfield College in Massachusetts. It's about an hour west of Boston. And that's where I got my journalism degree. I was actually the president of the radio club out there and did some play-by-play and broadcast. That's always kind of been my passion, is broadcast. But as a student, you learn to sharpen all your skill sets. So I fell into the writing thing at the Daily News, but I also get to kind of inject some of that broadcast skills here and there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I went to, I did my college days at Syracuse in the Newhouse School. And one of the first people I met over there was Tim Kirkjian. His daughter was going to school the same time as me, the baseball analyst for ESPN. And one of the first things that he told me is no matter what you do, don't ever stop writing.
Yes.
Whether you're going to be a writer, whether you're going to be a broadcaster, no matter what it is, because that really is foundational.
Oh, it's super foundational. And really, I think the kind of coining term the last maybe 20 years, 15 years is being a multimedia journalist. You don't want to be a one-stop shop. You want to be able to write, broadcast, record, video, edit, cut, and that'll open up opportunities. And it certainly did for me.
100%. Well, that's enough nerding out over the media world. Let's go ahead and get into football. So you cover a specific geographic section of the high school football landscape. So let's go ahead and set the scene and give our viewers an idea of specifically the areas and the leagues that we're going to be talking about on today's show. Right.
So the Los Angeles Daily News is mainly a San Fernando Valley-centric coverage area. We cover more than 100 schools, boys and girls sports. I would say the Daily News is part of 11 daily papers that makes up what's called the Southern California News Group, Orange County Register, San Gabriel Valley Tribune, Long Beach Press Telegram. These are some of the other papers that are our sister papers, so to speak. And I think the Daily News is the largest, if not the second largest coverage area outside of the Orange County area. So it's a lot of work. I'm the lone staff writer and I do my best to try and get out there. But for those that are watching and aren't too familiar, I cover like the Sierra Canyons, the Harvard Westlakes, the Crespies, the Notre Dames of the world. And then we cover city section, Birmingham, Chatsworth, Taft High School, things like that.
All right, so that's a lot of what we're going to be covering here in today's show, and there is some big time talent in North Los Angeles. In addition to the players on the field, elite coaching talent as well. Over the course of the preseason and the early season, our viewers have had the opportunity to hear from guys like David Machuca over at Chaminade, John Ellinghaus at Sierra Canyon, most recently Charlie Collins up at Oaks Christian, as well as others from down south in the Orange County and Trinity League areas. So after hearing from each of those guys in depth about players to watch, important storylines, and kind of previewing their seasons into, what is now the 2022 season, which has begun, we're going to take a more zoomed out view. So from your perspective and from the areas that you cover, give our viewers an idea of the caliber of play here in North LA and some of the most important storylines that you're going to be watching over the next couple of weeks and months.
Right. You know, with high school football at the start, I actually got this saying from Ed Croson, who was a longtime coach at Chaminade and Birmingham and very successful, now retired, and Dave Machuca took over the Chaminade program. But Ed Croson always used to say, hey, it's week 0. We're out here chasing ghosts. I don't even know how good my team is. And I tell you what, it's the same thing for anybody that's covering high school sports. You really don't know who's good until you see them play, or maybe even play against each other. So wrapping up week 0, there was a couple shockers in my area, but to really answer your question, the Sierra Canyon, Oaks Christian, up and coming Simi Valley, Chaminade, and now even West Ranch are programs that are pretty much in the top echelon of my area. And so a couple of those programs are Division I, Division II aspiring, for sure. Division II, I'd say more so Division I aspiring. But, you know, when they come up against those Orange County teams, they have a hard time. So here in the northern San Fernando Valley area, I would say Sierra Canyon's probably the team to beat.
Yeah, and I know they're ranked number 1 in the earliest edition of the LA Daily News high school football rankings. Obviously, through a week of games, those rankings may change, but coming out of the preseason, they were your number 1 ranked team. We're going to get into that list and the top teams on it. Before we do that, who are some of the biggest stock risers coming out of summer camp who maybe haven't been as much a part of the larger conversations?
Right. I think the number 1 that stands out to me is Ryan Staub. So Ryan Staub is a Colorado-bound quarterback that's out of West Ranch. And in week 0, so I had him number 7 preseason, and they hosted number 3 St. Francis, a very good team, went to a Division IV CIF final last year and fell short to Long Beach Poly, and returned a lot of guys on offense, and got a new kid from Texas named Devin Turner, who's unreal. So I was expecting St. Francis to win. It's who I picked. And Ryan Staub threw for more than 300 yards, 6 touchdowns, and ran for 1. So he had 7 touchdowns, and they dropped 61 on St. Francis. And it was like, whoa. So they're not only up in the rankings now. I think I got them moving. I had them from 7. Now they're at 4. But they're going to be one of the teams to beat in the Foothill League. And that's a program that hasn't been around for a long time. So I expect Ryan Staub to maybe lead West Ranch to a Foothill League title for the first time in program history. So that's the one that stands out to me. And then maybe one other one is Dijon Stanley from Granada Hills. Now, he's been on our radar because he's such a great athlete at track and field as well. But he's just so dominant. You literally give him the ball and anything can happen. So I'm curious to see how far he can take Granada Hills Charter in the city section realm.
And Granada Hills has 2 very solid running backs who had some breakout games in week 0, didn't they?
Yes, Dijon Stanley, and I'm forgetting his cousin's name, but he's got a cousin that also ran for more than 200 yards in that first game. So it's the 2 Stanleys in the backfields for Granada Hills, and that's another team to watch.
Yeah, Dijon Stanley, a Utah commit, right. Ryan Staub, as you said, a Colorado commit. So, you know, not only are these big-time players in the North LA region of the state, but also some big-time college commitments for those guys as well, and more that we're going to get into.
I think one thing worth noting that I think a team like Sierra Canyon, for example, I think this is certainly worth noting. So Sierra Canyon is getting to the position where they're such a highly touted program, it gets cutthroat. And so kids transfer when they're not playing, one being Ryan Staub. So Ryan Staub was at Sierra Canyon, you know, maybe saw the writing on the wall or what have you, knew he wasn't going to play, left. Now he's a standout and Division I commit at West Ranch. Alonzo Contreras was at Sierra Canyon, transferred. Now he's at Calabasas, threw 3 touchdowns the other day. And there's one more out there that I can't think of, but Sierra Canyon is certainly a team that's experiencing this cutthroat nature within their program, which is a good thing, but other players fall into other programs and do well for them. So kind of bittersweet to be Sierra Canyon right now.
Well, and Sierra Canyon themselves, their quarterback, Alonzo Esparza, he himself is a transfer, isn't he?
That's exactly right. So yeah, Damon Reister is one quarterback. He's a junior, and Alonzo Esparza, a sophomore who started against Jay Serra last week, which was a week 0 game, and he came from Culver City. So you bring up a good point. These programs are playing the transfer game, and that's just the truth. That's the high-level kind of game being played right now off the field, is bringing in guys that can play, and Alonzo Esparza is one of those, and now he's a starting quarterback at Sierra Canyon.
And really more so than any other season than we've seen in the past, the transfer game is really going to make an impact. And some of the guys that we've already spoken about, like you said, Ryan Staub, Alonzo Esparza, have been transfers. Javance Tupuada Johnson over at Chaminade as well. Let's go ahead and go a little bit deeper into that aspect of football. Who, in your view, have made some of the greatest strides improving their rosters via playing the transfer game? And what's going to be the ripple effect throughout the rest of the affected programs?
Yeah, you put that you're very good at what you do. You put a very good positive spin on that. It's funny. I think sometimes programs that in the past have kind of stuck their nose up at transfers. Hey, we're going to home grow our guys. We're going to develop our guys, which is majority of all programs, if we really think about numbers and percentages, is it's mostly growing your talent. However, the impact transfers come in. And I think some programs are being faced with a decision. Am I going to play that game to compete at the level at which we want to compete? Or am I going to continue to stick my nose up at it and get beat by 4 touchdowns on Friday night to the team that's playing the game? That's the truth. And I think there are naysayers and pundits that go, oh my gosh, we're ruining the purity of high school sports or what have you. I don't know if I disagree with that. I don't know if I agree with it. However, there's no question that things are changing. And so in order to compete at a certain level, a high level, transfers are now part of the game more than ever, as you alluded to. And I think some programs that generally weren't too keen on it are kind of thinking, okay, we got to open up the doors a little. And to really answer your question, programs like Chaminade and St. Francis specifically are teams that generally don't bring in a lot of transfers historically, but this year they're bringing them in and they're going to be really good.
And kind of breaking from the region that you cover, you brought up something before the show that you specifically wanted to get into that's kind of along the same lines of a way that the landscape is changing. You brought up a storyline related to St. John Bosco and an NIL agreement that they came to. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's right. I think I've been of the opinion we are entering a new era of amateurism, and that amateurism is no longer going to exist. You have high school athletes that are garnering attention with their name, image, and likeness, NIL, which is a very trendy thing the last couple of years. And at the collegiate level, you can cash in on that. And so monetary incentive is now woven into the fabric of amateurism. I'm not saying it's dangerous, bad, good. I'm not indifferent to it either. However, it certainly changes things. I challenge anyone to bring up a topic where money doesn't change something. It just does. And so people go, oh, great, now high schools are paying players, colleges are paying players for athletes to play. No, that's happened before and that's illegal. However, that's not happening. What is happening is players are playing to get paid. So you only cash in on an NIL deal, whether it be in high school, at the collegiate level, you create those eyes by if you can throw the ball well, catch the ball well, run fast, pitch hard, hit the ball hard, shoot the ball well, jump out the gym. That all creates eyes on you. And how can you cash that in? With an NIL deal. And so we saw St. John Bosco today sign an NIL deal for their whole team in which any of those players can choose to participate. So I think you're talking about now an extra tool, recruiting. That's another thing. Nowadays, maybe 5 years ago, if you used the R word, recruiting, with high school, it was like taboo. Now it's totally, there's recruiting tools that you use to bring players in. And so St. John Bosco is now a beacon to give athletes that already have a platform, maybe on Instagram or TikTok, to create monetary value for themselves. That's going to certainly change where players decide to go to school and how good that program is going to be. So I just had to feel like I needed to touch on that today because it is changing high school sports, and amateurism is stopping at the junior high level. So amateurism, you'd be an amateur in high school, you'd be an amateur in college, and then you'd turn professional. Now you can make money in high school. So amateurism stopping at what? The junior high level, 12 years old, 13 years old. And I wouldn't be surprised if down the line, I hope this isn't the case because it's a bit too young, but it could trickle down into that level too.
Well, and you brought up a very key distinction, which is the distinction between schools paying players, which is illegal and is not what we're talking about. That's not what's happening with regard to NIL, and players being able to make money off of their name, off of their image, off of their likeness, off of their notoriety. And what it really amounts to is being able to engage in the business market, being able to learn money skills, because, you know, as the old adage goes, these players aren't all going to play on Saturdays. These players aren't all going to play on Sundays, but they're going to be professionals in something. So really what NIL allows them to do is handle real money at a young age and learn how to manage that money and learn these skills that are going to benefit them, whether, you know, they make millions of dollars in the NFL and beyond, or do something else as a professional career. Yeah,
it's a great point you bring up. You're learning a life skill at a young age, and I would say that's a great point, and there's no danger in that. Learning is a great thing, but I will say what's going to start to happen is you get people that are wise in their years seeing a 16-year-old as dollar signs. Now, that's been happening for, I mean, that goes back a long time. Young people, we think they're, you know, we think this athlete's going to make a lot of money. Let's kind of get on that bandwagon so that when he cashes in, you know, we do too, so to speak. But now more than ever, you're going to see that money come in quicker and faster and at a younger age. So it used to be maybe 16. I project that kid's going to be a #1 draft pick in the NFL at 21. Now it's 16, 17. Wait a minute. He's already making money. And so it gets a little watery, a little muddy waters is really what I meant when you think about who's going to be involved when it comes to these NIL deals with a young person. And that's a little scary. And again, what does that do? It changes things.
Realignment is also another hot topic, especially this year. There's lots of talent in this region from top to bottom, but especially at the top, there's been some movement as far as people moving into new leagues. Sierra Canyon and Simi Valley, they started the season as your two top teams per your rankings. They're in new leagues, new members of the Mission League and Marmonte League, respectively. The Marmonte League also added Bishop Diego. What impact do those moves have on the overall balance of power in the region and the level of competition all around?
Yeah, I think the latter is more important. Programs that are trying to breach the air of Division I or Division II playoff football know that they need to be in a competitive league. Sierra Canyon used to be what's in the Gold Coast League. And for those who don't know, they actually wrote a contract. I don't know if you know this. There was like 6 or 7 teams in the Gold Coast League, but Sierra Canyon was getting so good, only one team agreed to play them every year. So Sierra Canyon would play Paraclete in one league game at the end of the year, and the winner would be the league champion, and the loser, usually Paraclete, would be the #2 spot in the league. So basically, at the beginning of the year, you were guaranteed a playoff position. It essentially, the other programs decided, you know what, we don't even want to play you. Just go be good. And so Sierra Canyon looked at that like, that's not good, because basically winning the Gold Coast League does nothing for their strength of schedule. So what does that mean when it comes to playoff berths for top divisions? No, Sierra Canyon's not a heavy hitter. Sierra Canyon in the Mission League now, you go win that Mission League, I would be shocked if that doesn't earn an automatic berth to the Division I high school football playoffs, the CIF Southern Section playoffs here in Southern California. So for Sierra Canyon, that's a big deal. For Simi Valley, the Marmonte League is also very competitive. It's basically the best programs in Ventura County. And Simi Valley is a team that almost has no football history in its like previous 70 years before Jim Bankert, who was a longtime coach at Westlake High School and Oaks Christian and won a ton of stuff at both those programs. He comes to Simi Valley, and essentially overnight, they're amazing. So Simi Valley is another one where if you win that league, you're pretty much guaranteed a Division II berth. And so what more could you want if you're a real competitor? You want to play the best and you want to be put in the best division. So those two programs are looking to do that.
Yeah, and with that kind of consolidation of top talent and the overall growth of these programs generally, you know, even though the football supremacy to this point has mostly resided in Long Beach, Orange County, these Trinity League programs, the gap does seem to be getting smaller and smaller. You know, you mentioned Sierra Canyon specifically. They were a team that gave Orange Lutheran a big run for their money in a highly competitive game in the CIF semifinals and the Division II playoffs. Then Orange Lutheran had to fend off Alamany, another Mission League team. So those are two San Fernando Valley teams that were really making noise and, as you said before the show, mixing it up in Orange County. So even though there is still a gulf between the North LA programs and the Orange County programs, it does seem to be getting a little bit smaller and smaller every year.
I think it does. You know, back, gosh, what year was this now? Maybe 2018, something like that. Calabasas High School was loaded, and Chris Claiborne, former USC linebacker, was the head coach, and they got to the Division I playoffs. They played St. John Bosco in the first round, and I think they lost like 49-7. It was rough, but hey, everyone here in the Valley was like, that's a big deal. That's like going to the NCAA tournament. That you see what I'm saying? That's just a big deal. Or getting berth to the college football playoff. Okay, you don't get to the finals or whatever, but just being there is a good thing for your program. So Sierra Canyon has yet to get to the Division I playoffs, but they're scheduling Jay Serra, who they beat twice last year and then lost their opener this year, but played Jay Serra, played Corona Centennial, Norco, Servite. So they're trying to nip at the heels of the big programs and see where they lie, litmus tests that tell you where your program is. And I have so much respect for that, because chances are when you're just starting out, you're going to lose those games. But as your program gets acclimated in playing those games, you're going to end up winning them. And that's when you start to see a lot of progress. And so Sierra Canyon is one of the programs in our area that continually doing that and is specifically looking to get to the Division I playoffs.
Anybody else that you have your eye on as a team that could possibly mix it up down in Orange County in the next year or two?
No. No. And I mean that wholeheartedly. And that's the difference is Sierra Canyon is so big up front. That's the difference is here in the Valley, historically, the Valley has been known for skill guys, fast running backs, wideouts, quarterbacks. The big fellas up front, they're down in Orange County, and that's where football games are won at almost every level. And so Sierra Canyon, the last couple years, has been large up front more than ever. And so that's what they know they need to go mix it up, as I said, with some of those Trinity League teams and even some of the upstart teams like Los Alamitos and Santa Margarita that are kind of like creeping up Corona Centennial. So again, when it comes to our area, Sierra Canyon, and then there's quite a bit of a gap between maybe Sierra Canyon, like a Chaminade or Simi Valley. But Sierra Canyon is the team that I think is going to keep nipping at the heels of that Division I playoff berth.
Okay, so getting into the top of the rankings and some of those week 0 results. So the top 5 teams headed into week 0 were Sierra Canyon, Simi Valley, St. Francis, Oaks Christian, and Chaminade. Like I said, we have the ability to cover 3 of those programs in fairly significant depth in the preseason and see how good they looked. Aside from Sierra Canyon, who we spoke about in great detail earlier in the show, what makes the rest of those teams top dog in the region?
Chaminade is a Mission League team. So right off the bat, you just know they're used to a certain level of football, period. It's just, there are these programs that have great years. I call them generational teams, meaning a little more of a ma and pa homegrown program, and they've got 20 seniors, and it's the best team they're going to have in years. Saugus was one of these. Saugus High School was one of these teams last year. A lot of seniors, a lot of veteran play. And they'll go play like a Sierra Canyon or a Chaminade or something. And those programs are so used to just playing scratch and claw big dog football every night. When a new puppy comes up to play, it's, you know, hey, good try, good effort, but you keep it moving. So Chaminade is a program that is just used to fighting for their lives every night in the Mission, every Friday night in the Mission League. So that's where I think there's just a huge respect, because those guys know what big dog football is how it's played. And so you need talent and all that stuff. So that's my kind of spiel on Chaminade. Simi Valley's trying to get there with Jim Bankert. He certainly knows what it takes. But again, the difference between a Simi Valley and even a Chaminade is the size up front. Skill, good quarterback, speed. The big dogs up front, they might have 1 or 2, where Chaminade's got, 6 or 7 guys that could even rotate. So I would say those are the 2, other than Sierra Canyon, that I would keep my eye on this year.
And obviously, we're only through 1 week of football. And like I said, by the time our viewers are watching, it will be through another one. So as far as week 0 goes, what are some of your biggest reactions and biggest takeaways from the week that just was?
Yeah, we alluded to Ryan Staub having a great year, a great opening week and taking down St. Francis. Chaminade actually impressed me. So Chaminade played Oaks Christian, which was another top team in our area. And I've kind of been critical about Oaks Christian when I write about them. I know you said you had Charlie Collins on, and I love Charlie. He's a good guy. But I tend to see so much talent be a little underwhelming on Friday nights. And I've been public about that. I've written about it, that they kind of fall flat in big games. They've yet to win a big game in like 2 or 3 years. In fact, they got shut out for the first time in program history against Sierra Canyon during that spring season. I think the score was 41 or 42-0. Then last year they lost big to Chaminade and St. Bonaventure and Alamany. And then this year they had their chance to get a good program in Chaminade to start the season. It was closer, but they lost. I mean, and so I would like to see Oaks Christian really play at the level I think they anticipate they like to play at. So that's a storyline for me that I'm keeping an eye on, is Oaks Christian.
Okay. And, you alluded to quarterback play, and that's something that's obviously so important at every level of football. And, for most of these teams, their ability to have success is going to depend on the ability of their starting quarterbacks to get it done. And so much of the attention as far as the class of 2023 goes to, a couple of guys down south, Malachi Nelson and Nico down at Warren. Up here, we talked so much about Ryan Staub, obviously Javance Tupuola Johnson as well. Those are kind of the top dogs in this region. Ryan, a Colorado commit, Javance, the highest rated quarterback commit in San Diego State history. So is it safe to say?
I actually didn't know that, really.
Yeah, he's the highest rated quarterback commit to ever commit to San Diego State.
Oh, good for him. I knew he was going there. I knew he was good. I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, so that's a pretty big milestone for him, a pretty big milestone for the program. So as far as those two, it's safe to say that those are the two biggest stars at the quarterback position in this region.
Yeah, they are as seniors. I'd say the one that everyone's got their eye on is Wyatt Becker. He's a sophomore quarterback at Notre Dame Sherman Oaks, and he's got all the, he's got Georgia and Penn State. I mean, SEC schools and Big Ten schools, Pac-12 schools. He's the most highly touted in our area. But in regards to maybe who's the most proven, it's Ryan Staub. Javance Johnson, if anybody gets a chance to go see Javance Johnson play, you stand next to this guy. He's like 6'4", 6'5", very impressive physically. You think he's like getting ready for the NFL draft. He's huge and very elusive, physically unreal.
I'm going to cut you off.
Yeah.
I did stand next to him, and I'm 5'5", so yeah, can confirm it was a little overwhelming.
Yeah, he's huge, and you're like, you're in high school, so, and as such a nice kid, I like Javance a lot. That's another thing, sometimes as a reporter, you just got to be critical a little bit. It's not a bad thing. Just say, hey, and I think Javance is yet to pass for 1,000 yards in a season. And I think he's going to do that this year and do that really well. But he's had injuries and had to battle with other quarterbacks for playing time and stuff like that. But I'd like to see him really blow up and see how good he can really be. And so that's a touch on Javance Johnson. But I brought up Wyatt Becker and Ty Dieffenbach, who's out in Agora. Not going to get a lot of pub because Agora's not one of the heavy hitters in the area, but I believe he's committed to UNLV right now. He's about 6'6" and long and athletic and can really throw the ball very effortlessly. It's like a flick and that thing comes out. So those are the other two I'd bring up, Wyatt Becker and Ty Dieffenbach. Another
guy that I want to get into on the other end, we talked about some upperclassmen, Brady Smiegel over at Newbury Park.
Yes.
He's a freshman, and he had a heck of a debut game, going for over 300 yards, 4 touchdowns in his debut game for the Panthers. His dad, Joe Smiegel, is the new head coach over there. What have you seen out of him, and what makes him so special? Because he's been lauded for his advanced size, athleticism. For again, I'll say for I think the third time, he is a freshman.
Yeah, yeah. It's I haven't had a chance to see him play live. And that's one of the things I'm going to get to this year. He's only a freshman, haven't had many opportunities. They've only played 1 game, but he impressed. And so he's one I got to get out and watch. But I've seen his tape, his film, his huddle, stuff like that. And some of the throws he makes are really, really impressive. I actually spoke to Dan Kelly, who is the head coach at Golden Valley, whom they beat in the opener. And I just texted him. I said, hey, Dan, is the freshman the real deal? And he said, he's got all the tools to be a great quarterback. Yes, he's very good. And Dan Kelly's been around a long time. So he would have told me, yeah, he's okay, or he's got some work to do. No, he was impressed by the young freshman. So yeah, Brady Smiegel could end up being one of the top quarterbacks in the state when it's all said and done.
Yeah, and elsewhere on the field, we had a bunch of breakout offensive performances from guys not at the quarterback position. We talked about Dijon Stanley at Granada. Aaron Butler at Calabasas had a huge game. Caleb Alvaret at Simi Valley had a huge game. So what we've seen, at least out of the season's first week, is that a lot of those guys who are expected to be top performers did what they were supposed to do, looked like they're ready to live up to the billing. So, talk about some of those guys that we haven't gotten into yet. And also, who else has stood out to you from an individual perspective, whether it's a guy who's expected to be at the top of the rankings or maybe a guy who hasn't been as much of a part of the conversation that can really be an X factor for some of these teams?
So Caleb Alvaret had a great year, had a great week for Simi Valley. You nailed that. Oh, gosh, who was the other young man you just brought up? Another running back. No, you brought up Aaron Butler. Aaron Butler, wide receiver going to USC. And he's just like, it's the Aaron Butler show. Anytime they air it out to him, he can jump up and go get it. He can catch it short and go, and then break it out for 40 yards.
Yeah, 172 yards and 2 touchdowns in his opening game.
There you go. And he has a teammate, running back named King Miller, who's also quite explosive. These are all kids that go to Calabasas High School. One to watch. I'd say actually the one who impressed me in week 0, I saw him play live too. I'm going to touch on the one game I saw, Chaminade and Oaks Christian. So Justice Williams is a wide receiver for Oaks Christian. I want to say he had over or near 100 yards receiving for Oaks, and they've got a quarterback battle going on over there. So as a wideout, you're lined up on the right and you look over, okay, it's Devin Tate, for example, for Oaks Christian. A couple series later, he looks over, it's Nate Bennett. So as a wideout, being thrown by a different quarterback can be a little different. But either way, he was catching everything and really hard to stop. So Justice Williams, Oaks Christian, and then the other one on the Chaminade side was Jalen Barbaran, who is one of the state's fastest 100-yard meter dash runners. And so he played running back for Chaminade. And usually he actually transferred from Simi Valley. So he usually plays in the slot or they move him around. But he was like almost an every down back. He split touches with Noah Elliott. But he was very impressive and took hits on, didn't shy away from contact. Really impressive with Jalen. He's going to be a senior. So another one that's kind of under the radar because he's playing what I think is a different position.
Well, we'll definitely keep an eye on all of those guys as we move throughout the season. Looking a little bit ahead, like I said, as we sit here today, we're through 1 week of games. By the time this airs, we'll be through 2. This is really the time of year where we find out who these teams are, what they're made of. So looking ahead at some of the next few weeks and even further into the season, what are some of the most important games that you have circled on your calendar, whether that be for playoff implications, regional rivalries, bragging rights, whatever? What are the most important games that fans have to look forward to?
Yeah, bragging rights is almost the most important. Man, the one that's circled on my calendar is Bishop Amat and Sierra Canyon. And I know people always, okay, what is this? A Sierra Canyon podcast show? It's just that's the team in the area. And you know what? They dominate my area. We're not even talking about their boys basketball team. Sierra Canyon, fact, is the most Googled high school in the country. It might even be the world. I'd have to ask the headmaster, but it's hard to have my area of coverage and not talk about Sierra Canyon. It'd be like I wouldn't be doing my job. So all that to say, Bishop Amat, Sierra Canyon, that's a justification for the viewers, by the way. Bishop Amat, Sierra Canyon, September 30th. Likely, not 100%, but likely to be a telltale of who's going to win that Mission League. I think whoever wins that game will have a driver's seat, will be in the driver's seat to win the Mission League. And again, like we talked about earlier, maybe a Division I berth. I think that pretty much does it. I'll go back to the Marmani League because I think those are the 2 leagues in our area. I think Simi Valley and St. Bonaventure is actually going to be what probably decides that league. Oaks Christian could get better because they're so talented, but I think Simi Valley is going to be the one to beat along with St. Bonaventure, the defending Marmani League champion.
Anything that you're looking at over in the Foothill League?
Oh yeah, you bring up West Ranch. That's what's interesting. So in week 0. They dropped 61 points on St. Francis, and it's like, man, Ryan Staub, is he already in the running for Daily News Player of the Year? I don't know. He could totally go out there in week 1 and not have a great game, and West Ranch, flops and loses to Buena up in Ventura. That's you can't overreact too much in week 0, whether it be a great win or a tough loss. Talking about tough losses, I don't know if you saw the score. Alamany played Lone Peak of Utah and lost, I think, 45-20 or something. They were down 42-0. That's another storyline in our area, as Alamany I think most people were worried they may not even have football. Their numbers were low. They graduated a lot of players. Their enrollment's down in their school, but Casey Clausen brought in a lot of transfers, and it's a lot of new faces that are trying to gel. So getting out there in week 0 and being down 42-0 at one point in a game isn't fun, but that's why you have another game. You play week 1 and you try and get better.
Well, isn't that what we do in the sports talk industry? We overreact.
Yeah,
come on, man.
Yeah.
Overreact.
And football's maybe the best sport to do it because they only play once a week. So in between games, I mean, gosh, you can overreact, undersell, and you could just milk storylines. So that's one of the reasons why football's so fun to cover. And for those who are annoyed by it, you all know you love it.
So going a little bit into the college game before we wrap up, we're just a couple of weeks out from the start of that season. And let's talk about some of the athletes who have graduated from programs in the region that you cover and now are set to begin their college careers. You know, like I said, some big time players at some big time programs, among them Kamari Ramsey at your favorite school, Sierra Canyon.
Don't say that, man. Cut that out. No, I'm kidding.
He's now moved on to UCLA, and there are several big name players who are now at Texas, Notre Dame, Arizona. Talk about some of those North LA guys who are now trying to make an impact as freshmen with some prominent college programs.
Yeah, I would say the ones to watch, you nailed the Notre Dame guy. So that's Junior Tui Halamaka is his name. He's a linebacker and one of the best in the country. I think he might be like an immediate impact. I mean, I don't know if he'll start, but he'll certainly be in the rotation because he's just so talented.
And which programs he at?
Notre Dame. Yeah, he came from Alamany. Linebacker is just outstanding. And then I would say he's not a freshman, but Zach Charbonnet is going to be basically the go-to dude for UCLA. He went to Oaks Christian. Okay, now that I'm Kayvon Thibodeau, he unfortunately just got hurt, but he's one to watch from the Giants. Covered him his whole high school career, so it was fun to see him go so high in the NFL draft this year, but we got to stick with college. I think the other one that I can't put a pin on right now, there was one, Arliss Boardingham. Arliss Boardingham from Birmingham was our Daily News Player of the Year. He's at Florida.
Okay.
And so he was an interesting recruit because he could play defensive end or tight end. And there was other programs that were recruiting him at linebacker. At Birmingham, he played so many different positions. It showed off his versatility. However, it kind of watered down seeing him at just tight end and dominating or just defensive end and dominating. He played so many different positions. So it'll be curious to see where Arliss Boardingham lines up for Florida, the Florida Gators.
I'm not going to stop you from talking about Kayvon if you want to talk about Kayvon.
Gosh, man, that kid was unreal. I'll never forget seeing him for the first time. And kind of like we were talking about Javance Johnson from Chaminade, it's like, really? You know, you're only a sophomore or a junior? And we all knew Kayvon was special because he was just so combination of size, strength, and speed. And, you know, that's why he's a top pick and he dominated at Oregon. And what a nice, mature kid. The guy was funny. So Kayvon was a really fun cover. And that's why I think sometimes high school sports can really be an enjoyable beat because you really get to know these athletes, you know, when they first started out. You're almost like their first PR people, you know. No one knows who Kayvon Thibodeau is. You start writing about him and, you know, he's getting recruited. I wouldn't say I discovered Kayvon Thibodeau. Let me retract that. But, you know, you give him some pub. He's in the paper. He's out there. You can read about him. You can get to know him. And he's so accessible. You know, it's just like show up at Oaks Christian and, hey, what's up, Kayvon? Oh, hey, what's up? It's just not like that anymore when they're in the pros, as you know. So it's really fun to say, you know, you knew him when. Yeah,
and you actually bring up a really good point. You know, the media atmosphere in the high school game is so much different than it is when you get to the big time college programs and into professional sports. That's one thing that Eric Sondheimer and I talked about when he came on the show. How much of an impact are you able to make in these players' lives? It's one thing, you know, you've got a job to do, you've got readers to attract, you've got subscriptions to sell, but, you know, really aside from that, you know, what we do in this industry, we really are making an impact. Talk about how rewarding that is.
Yeah, even in high school, and frankly, and this isn't, I'm not trying to hype myself up, but high school sports, it really is kind of a thankless job. There's no SID running around with box scores at the game, and you got to take your own stats. You got to wrangle in your own interviews. You got to make your own calls. There's so much note taking you have to do yourself. And when you go cover a college game or a pro game, you sit there and watch the game, and at the end of every quarter, someone drops in a stat sheet for you, and there's a packet this thick on historical analysis, and when's the last time these teams played, and what was the score? Yeah, none of that in high school athletics. You kind of have to keep that stuff yourself. And so it's a grind. And the flip side of that is getting to know these athletes before they go big time. And that's the impact, I think, where, yeah, a Kayvon Thibodeau, to be frank, probably didn't need my coverage. You know, he was that good. But someone that's probably not going to play college, you could tell their story that otherwise wouldn't be told. And that's cool, because what's fun is that clip is going to get cut out and put on a refrigerator or maybe framed or something like that. And 30 years later, it's going to have all kinds of dust on it. But, you know, that player is going to show his kid like, hey, you know, at one time I was pretty good at X, Y, or Z. And that's kind of cool, you know. So in a way, the writing lives on for a long time. And that's fun to know that you are impacting a community, because at the core of it, local journalism and local reporting is that you want to impact your community and engage your community. And I feel like I've done that.
Yeah, and through having these coaches on the show, through talking to these players, there really is so much local pride, and that's something that we certainly strive for here at Cannon Sports through our Cannon Sports Profile series, which you can check out on YouTube at Cannon Sports Media. Shameless self-promotion, I know. Anyway, always nice to talk to somebody who is also engaging in that mission as well. Another thing that I wanted to get into before we go, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk to you about, no, not about that, but we'll get to that.
I thought it was coming. It
is coming.
Oh, okay.
But we got one more sports-related thing first. You're also a prominent figure in covering high school basketball in the area. We're still a couple of months out from that getting started. But while I have you in the chair, why don't you give our viewers a brief primer on what to expect in the basketball season? Yeah,
the big one, again, is the Mission League. So you're going to have Notre Dame Sherman Oaks with Dusty Schomer going to Gonzaga, and he's got 2 additional big-time players that joined him, and it is a Duke commit and a Houston commit. Caleb Foster's going to Duke, and Percy Miller, or is it Mercy Miller? Mercy Miller, sorry. There's a couple of them that are coming into Notre Dame. So that's a huge team. Harvard Westlake, Trent Perry's coming back, Jacob Huggins is coming back, and Brady Dunlap is coming back. And then, of course, you know, the big program is Sierra Canyon. Bronny James is going to be a senior. They've added like 3 or 4 transfers over the summer. One's from Damien, one's from Village Christian. They're going to be pretty loaded, but their top player is Isaiah Elohim, who's kind of like can go wherever he wants type athlete. So those are the 3 big schools in our area. And then the one that's really been loading up on the transfers that everyone's going to watch is West Ranch. James Evans is coming in, and 7-footer Jazz Gardner from Los Altos is transferred in. And Andrew Meadow just committed to Boise State. It's unreal, the talent. I would say in all of California, our area, just the San Fernando Valley, is the most talented in basketball. It's other than Corona Centennial, who's the defending state champion, giving them the respect. They're outstanding. Jared McCain going to Duke, and Coach Josh Giles is a great coach. But in regards to just teams going at it and depth and talent, and on any given weeknight you go to a game, the San Fernando Valley is loaded, and even historically. So I'm a basketball guy. So for me, when high school basketball rolls around, that's a really, really fun cover.
Well, I certainly hope to have you back as that season comes closer and have a more in-depth conversation about it.
Would love to be back.
Okay, now it's coming.
So
it's not just high school football players, teams that you do rankings for. You have on the personal side another ranking system that you have set up. Go ahead and tell us about that.
Yeah, I show up at stuff, and people don't want to talk to me about sports. They want to talk to me about breakfast burritos, and that's the truth. It actually started during the pandemic. There was just not a lot going on, period, let alone high school athletics that got shut down for so long. And I forgot where I saw it, but I think a buddy of mine, Aram Taligian, I think this is how it started. He started tweeting about finding a good breakfast burrito. And he's like, there's none out there. You know, LA's supposed to be the hotbed of breakfast burritos. I never have a good one. I said, you gotta be wrong. So it actually, the debate alone on Twitter created some dialogue. And I thought there's a lot of engagement here. Let me try and get in on this. So I asked Twitter, okay, give me some of your best breakfast burritos. And I went out and started trying some and recording just, hey, what it looks like, how good is it, and then giving it a rating out of 10. And now I'm not saying I'm, viral or on the Food Network or anything, but given eating a breakfast burrito and talking about it for 2 minutes and then just being on my way, it's caught quite a bit of attention.
Well, it's kind of got like a Dave Portnoy pizza reviews
no
vibe.
question. I mean, I would be 100%. That's basically who I copied it off of. Just like, man, he's getting a lot. He's eating pizza. Let me do breakfast burrito reviews. And here in Los Angeles, it's a big deal. Breakfast burritos are very popular. So yeah, I go to games and uncles and dads and moms and coaches. I'll come up to a coach and go, hey, coach, you know, anybody missing tonight from the lineup or anyone I need to know about? He'll look at me and go, hey, man, where'd you go this week for the breakfast burrito? You know, like, it's like, coach, we're about to cover the game. And people really enjoy the breakfast burrito reviews. And I think at the core, you know, food, music, these are things that kind of see no color, creed, right? It's just food. It brings people together, you know, stuff like that. So people will debate, they'll agree, they'll argue. And for me, that's the fun part, is kind of just giving an opportunity for people to dive in, no pun intended, on food takes. And so, yeah, I go around and I do breakfast burrito reviews.
Well, yeah, you know, we obviously started off on this topic joking and laughing about it, but, you know, just as high school sports really instills a sense of local pride, and that's something that's really important to the communities that we cover, so too do the local establishments. I mean, these are the places where people come together and have friendly debates about over who's better. All right, so what is the best breakfast burrito in the Valley? Yeah,
so there's a couple. The one that I always point out to people is truly like a hole in the wall. So if you're in the Valley and you're in West Hills, you go to Fallbrook and Van Owen. Fallbrook and Van Owen. And there's a gas station. And you go into the gas station and there is like a little kitchen, so to speak. So I'm not saying go in there and get a wrapped pre-made burrito. It's a legit burrito. They make it in there. But I think a place like that that's really owned and run by a ma and pa kind of thing, that's where I think it's the coolest, because you would never expect a great breakfast burrito to come out of there. Get the chorizo breakfast burrito and you won't regret it.
Tarek Fattal digging deep to find the best high school basketball, football talent in Southern California and the best breakfast burritos around. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Yeah, pleasure to be here. Thanks again.
Before we go, anything that you want to shout out? Where can we find you and read your stuff?
Oh, yeah. Twitter at Tarek, TAREK_Fattal, FATTAL. And of course, all my coverage can be read at dailynews.com/highschoolsports.
All right. Well, we appreciate you for joining us once again, everybody. Please make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to this channel, share the show with your friends if you like it. Thanks again to Tarek for joining us, and we will see you next time on the Cannon Sports Podcast. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure to subscribe and follow on Instagram at Cannon Sports, TikTok at Cannon Sports Official, and of course, cannonsports.com for all your sporting goods needs.